I am very happy to announce that I am back. I am back to talking Bulls basketball. And today, for my return, I am going to be talking about a bunch of news that has happened the past couple days and some news that we just got today. But yes, I am finally healthy enough to talk Bulls basketball. Welcome back to TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. We're going to be going over the news that came out by Will Gottlieb, talking about that the Bulls had multiple trade offers for Alex Caruso, but they didn't accept it. As well as this article that Casey Johnson has dropped today. He dropped it on Twitter, and his article is posted on NBCSportsChicago.com. But before we get into it all, make sure you hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, it will help me out a lot if you can hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. And I can't wait to get into the offseason. And I'm obviously planning on having a lot of content for you guys heading up to the draft. And obviously draft coverage is going to be a big thing. So I'm happy to say I am finally healthy again. And I'm very happy to be talking Bulls basketball. So let's get into this. I'm sure you guys have already seen this by now because this came out on June 17th. So about 3 days ago. And this came out, and if you're following my Twitter, you saw my reactions to it. But I want to talk about this a little bit more because I am... When I saw this, first off, there's a couple things that always kind of go off in my head that I have to kind of go through like a checklist. First things first is who posted it, which is Will Gottlieb from CHGO. Will Gottlieb is someone that you should trust. So I think this is a guy that you should be trusting with this sort of info. And Will Gottlieb just doesn't post this unless he has a reliable source. So Will Gottlieb is trustworthy when it comes to this sort of stuff. Now, I don't know who his source is, but maybe his source kind of like blew this out of proportion just a little bit and said like, oh, the Bulls were off for like 3 first-round picks when they maybe weren't. But either way, it's someone that Will Gottlieb trusts. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that this is true. And this shows you that, hey, well, basically what the report was saying is that the Bulls passed on multiple trade offers for Alex Caruso for multiple picks, including potentially a top 10 first-round pick in this year's draft. And it was because ownership mandated that the front office to try to push for the playoffs. Therefore, obviously, if you're trying to make the playoffs, you're not going to be trading Alex Caruso. And when I heard this, like, there's always this reaction that I saw on Bulls Twitter where it's like you either blame one or the other. And so to start this video, I'm going to say that the big topic of this video is that 2 things can be true. And those 2 things are, 1, Jerry Reinsdorf is a horrible owner, and he should not be getting involved, but he continues to get involved in basketball decisions when he shouldn't. But number 2, AK and Mark Eversley have been absolutely horrible in the front office and do not deserve any slack even with this report coming out. Okay? Because I saw a lot of people, their initial response was, oh, well, see, the front office is being hampered down by the ownership saying, hey, you need to make this move. Therefore, the front office shouldn't be as criticized because they don't have the freedom that they say to have. Therefore, we should give AK and Mark Eversley some slack. I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. First off, it's stupid that the Bulls, if this is true, that the Bulls did have to turn this offer down because obviously for Alex Caruso, you want to be getting a lot in return. And it seems like the Bulls had those offers, but they weren't able to accept it. But here's my main point of this whole thing. Just because ownership said, hey, push for the playoffs and turn down this trade does not mean we should be giving Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas any sort of slack. They have been flat out awful in their time in the Bulls front office, okay? And let me show you why. One of the big arguments for whatever reason with Bulls fans is that, hey, this front office has not been given enough resources and is not allowed to spend enough money to make this team an actually a good team. And I'm already here to tell you that's wrong, okay? Now, I'm not here saying that the Bulls are going to be into the tax. That's a Jerry Reinsdorf issue, and like we said, 2 things can be true. Reinsdorf is a horrible owner, and yes, he will not allow this team ever to go into the tax. But the other part about it is that Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley have been given enough resources to make this team at least a playoff team, okay? And let me show you why. This is the salary caps for all the teams, or salaries for all the teams this past season, okay? As you can see, the luxury tax threshold, which is the luxury tax line, okay, was at $165 million, okay? So if you're past that number, you're in the tax. And you can see that 8 teams were above that line, so that means we had 8 teams in the tax this season, okay? And a lot of them were playoff teams, like the Clippers, like the Suns, like the Celtics who just won the championship, like the Bucks. Denver was the reigning champs, Miami, etc., okay? But you see here, when we get to number 9, which is the New Orleans Pelicans, and we go down lower, these are all the teams that were not in the tax. And this is where I say that Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley have been given enough resources to make this team at least a playoff team. I'm not saying contender, because yes, I think you need to go into the luxury tax to be a contender, but they have been given enough to make this team a consistent playoff team. And let me show you why. Pelicans, they were in the playoffs. They were not in the tax. The Dallas Mavericks were just in the NBA Finals. They were not in the tax. 76ers have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. They were not in the tax. The Minnesota Timberwolves were in the Western Conference Finals. They were not in the tax. And we can keep going. Cleveland, obviously a pretty decent team this year. New York was the second seed in the Eastern Conference, and they were not in the tax this year. And to top things off, the Indiana Pacers were $20 million below the luxury tax line, and they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And I'm aware about injuries, but still, this team was still a playoff team, $20 million cheaper than the Chicago Bulls were, okay? So, I am here to tell you that when it comes to Jerry Reinsdorf and when it comes to how this Bulls team, this front office operates, okay? I think, and this is just my speculation, that the Reinsdorf said to this front office, hey, we need you to start making this team a consistent playoff team, okay? And the front office went out and made moves which clearly did not work out well, and they should be criticized for those moves. But at the end of the day, they are given a goal of make the playoffs every single year. And this front office has failed to do so the past 2 seasons. That's the reason why this front office does not deserve any slack, and that is the reason why they should continue to be criticized, okay? And if you think about it, half the teams in the NBA make the playoffs, and this Bulls team, by this front office, has not been able to do that in the past 2 seasons. That is a major problem, and that's why they should be criticized. And like I said, the 2 things could be true. I'm heavily criticizing the front office, but then obviously Reinsdorf had this, whoever it's Michael or Jerry, whoever it is, had this goal of making the playoffs, and this front office has failed to do so the past 2 seasons, and they won't fire this front office even though they failed to do their goal the past 2 seasons. That shows you, like I said, 2 things are true. Ownership sucks, front office sucks, neither deserve any slack, all should be criticized heavily, okay? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm seeing tweets or X posts like this by Bull-centric YouTube, which I've criticized on this channel many times. I'm not trying to start beef at all, but this is just the stuff that I see where a lot of Bulls fans get swayed by this sort of stuff, where it's like, see, this is the reason why I'm not as critical of Arturas as others are, which I don't understand this logic, because like I just showed you, he's had enough money because he's been able to spend up to the luxury tax line every single season, okay? If you're questioning this about the previous years, look, see, the Bulls, $149 million, the luxury tax line, $150. Even in the previous year, right, $134 million, luxury tax line, $136. He's been given enough money to make this team a consistent playoff team, but he has not been able to do so. That's the reason why I don't understand this logic of thinking. And then someone like Ross, who I like Ross a lot, he's Switch Theory, but he made this long post, and I'm just so confused by what he's trying to say here. Because he goes on to say, one of the biggest issues for this era of Bulls basketball has been the lack of foresight. I can't believe the Reinsdorf think they can contend with this core, but they don't seem to realize the NBA revolves around finding a superstar, giving them tools to succeed. But I'm just like, isn't that the job of the front office? Because you can still get a superstar even without having to go into the tax. We saw it. Like, we've seen it this past season. Hello, Luka Doncic, like, you can still have a superstar without going into the tax. But then he goes on to talk about that they mismanage assets, which I agree. They haven't. You think that retaining your picks would have helped, but they haven't made a significant needle movers besides Ayo Dosunmu in the draft. And I'm like, okay, but who's still calling these shots? This is still the front office. This is still not Reinsdorf in them, and yet he says Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley operate from a place of fear. They are afraid of failing too hard in this point in the Reinsdorfs. They've already failed the Reinsdorfs. They've already disappointed the Reinsdorfs, right? But here's the thing. The Reinsdorfs don't care because they were just good enough this season to have an extra game at home, so they sold an extra game of tickets because the Bulls were in the play-in. Therefore, honestly, if you're the Reinsdorfs, I mean, you say make the playoffs, this was probably okay enough, which is the problem still. Either way, though, you're still seeing that both sides are at fault here. The Reinsdorfs suck because they won't fire the front office that failed to meet their goal, if this front office still sucks because they still were not able to make a playoff caliber team with the assets they were given, and it's plenty of assets, okay? And yes, they have mismanaged their assets very, very badly. So that's the end of my rant for this whole thing, and let me know what you guys think about this, because I did not understand this logic of thinking by some Bulls fans and other Bulls media people. Yes, at the end of the day, Reinsdorf is the issue. At the end of the day, Reinsdorf is always the big issue, and he's always at the top, and he is the problem. But just because Reinsdorf is the problem, that does not mean that we should be giving slack to this front office who has failed to do things properly in their time so far with the Bulls, okay? AKA Mark Eversley deserve just as much criticism as Jerry Reinsdorf and Michael Reinsdorf at the end of the day. So, that is stuff from June 17th with the Alex Caruso stuff, and let's see what the Bulls do with Alex Caruso in this offseason, which I don't know, honestly. I really don't. But moving on to today's news, which is about stuff that Casey Johnson has put out in his little article here on NBC Sports Chicago, and he talked about a lot of things in this little article, and the biggest thing is that he talked about how the Bulls are kind of all over the place, which, as you can see here, all over the place seems to be a prevailing sentiment from several rival executives, and that should be a good thing for some Gary Bulls fans, which this at least kind of points to that there are some changes coming. Now, to the extent of changes, I don't know, because what they could say, hey, we made major changes and we just moved Zach LaVine off the roster. We re-signed DeRozan, we brought back Patrick Williams, and yeah, we made major changes, which that's not major changes, right? That's making one change, not making major changes to this roster, right? So I'm going to at least hope that this front office is thinking major changes and not just one major change, but we'll see. But then he also talked about how the Bulls could potentially be moving up or moving back in this year's draft. And that's something that I'm actually quite interested to see. And I'll talk about that in just a second. He also talked about that LaVine's future is probably, on a different team start the season, which we'll see about that. I don't really know if that's going to be the case, but he mentioned these 3 teams and that 15 trade proposals have been given out to many different teams. The one team that I do think is pretty realistic is Sacramento, with the Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter deal. I do think that is pretty realistic. That is also me saying that I do not include Alex Caruso in that deal if the money is able to match. But that's for another day. When it comes to that sort of trade, I'll make that for a different video. But I want to talk about this right here, which is the Bulls with their 11th pick. And if you guys know me, I don't really watch too much college basketball. I've taken this started this week and going into the draft for next week. I am taking this time to do a lot of my scouting. But we got a report on the 17th as well that the Bulls had workouts with Ron Holland, Terrence Shannon Jr., Ryan Dunn, Kyle Filipowski, and others as well. And the one name that at least kind of caught my eye was Ron Holland, because I have taken the time to watch Ron Holland and scout him a little bit, and he's a guy that I think would be very, very good to pick, because I think he has a really high potential. But the other thing too that a lot of Bulls fans are thinking is that Arturas Karnisovas probably likes Buzelis, Matas Buzelis, who is a hometown kid. As you can see here, he is projected to go 5th overall on NBADraft.net, but you see that he is from Chicago, so he'd be a hometown guy. But also that it seems like this would be the type of guy that maybe Arturas Karnisovas would like. His comparison is Franz Wagner, and I love that comparison because it truly looks like he could be like Franz Wagner in a way. But my only thing is just I don't know how the Bulls get up to number 5 or even into the top 4. Because I don't think Detroit wants to trade this pick. I don't think San Antonio is going to want to trade this pick. And maybe the Bulls can trade with the Houston Rockets, but I don't know how that would work. But in all honesty, I could actually see maybe the Bulls trading up to number 8, because I think San Antonio might be willing to trade this pick. And this is where, at least in my saying, at least for now, this is as of June 20th, that I think the Bulls could be potentially looking at Ron Holland and picking a number 8 and trading up with San Antonio to get the 8th overall pick and then picking Ron Holland, which he's projected to go around that area. We'll see where he actually goes. But that's just kind of my guess if the Bulls do trade up. But in all honesty, if I had to make a bet, the Bulls trade back. because this is a draft where I don't think there's like, oh, you need to pick this guy at the top type draft. I could see, you know, for someone like Buzelis potentially even falling to number 10, even though he's projected to go number 5 right now. So we'll see what actually happens with the Bulls. But that's at least kind of my sense of understanding it, because I think the Bulls might want to load up on younger players and try to, you know, and it's to do that they would trade back instead. So that's just at least my idea. But we'll see, because at the end of the day, we never know. I've predicted wrong 3 times in a row with the Bulls in drafts. So, yeah, we'll see what actually does happen. But that is going to be it for this video. This is my return video, and I'm just happy to say that I am back and able to be healthy and talk basketball again, which is something I'm very, very happy to do. Like I said before, please hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And I just want to say thank you to my community for supporting me through all of this. I did have another operation done on me, but now that I have got through that, I'm feeling pretty good to go. So expect more content in the off season, and then obviously content when we head into the season. But that's going to do it for me. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.